Hello, everybody. So my name is Philippa, Functional Medicine Practitioner. I'm going to do a lab review on one of my favorite tests. All of them are my favorite, but this one's kind of fun. The Vaginal Microbiome Profile. So funny. So if you've been prescribed this test, you are probably looking forward to seeing what types of bugs live in your vagina. So the reason why I would be prescribing this test is if someone is struggling with vaginitis, so that's whether that's inflammation, itchiness, redness. It could be something like showing signs of thrush or bacterial vaginosis. So that could be like funny discharge, funky smells. You might be feeling pain during sex. They're usually the main reasons. Often I actually really like doing this test too for women who are wanting to fall pregnant, or even pregnant right now, because your baby will collect your vaginal microbiome as it comes out of your vaginal canal. So as a preventative measure, we want to make sure that your vagina is the healthiest it can be, and also that we can treat it naturally as opposed to needing antibiotics potentially later on in the pregnancy, which just wipes out your and Bub's microbiome. So this test is really good too for people who just have had chronic vaginal issues. You've used all of the fungal creams, tablets, antibiotics, and your issues just keep popping back time and time again. It can really identify what exactly is going on, and it goes beyond what a GP would usually test for. So GPs, let me pull this up. So GPs do swabs as well. They're really looking to identify any nasty bacteria, candida, so thrush, fungal overgrowth, or STIs. This test is a bit more comprehensive. So it looks at things that GPs don't necessarily look for. It looks at all the STIs. So you can see here, I'm just jumping down here at the moment, sexually transmitted infections. It can detect if there's a sexually transmitted disease. You may have already done this with your doctor already, or maybe this is the first time you're actually testing it. But what I love about this test too is that it just gives us some really detailed information. So it looks at candida, but it looks at all the different types of candida and it names them. And, then that can change the way that we create your natural treatment program to help restore your vaginal ecosystem. What GPs don't usually do is they don't look at the amount of bacteria that we have on this test. I mean, they do look at things like strep B, which can be quite harmful for a baby if it's born when the mother has a strep B infection. There can be some other specific bacterial pathogens, but this test looks at opportunistic bacteria. So it's looking at bacteria that's part of the normal flora of the vagina, but if it overgrows, that's where it becomes opportunistic and it can become quite pathogenic. So on this test, you can see that, I'm going to try and pronounce these words, Gardnerella vaginalis is detected in high amounts, shouldn't be higher than 1. This is at 10.6, so quite high. The Megasphaera species is 2.77, Mycoplasma species 9.65, Urea plasm species is also quite high. And some of these species too are directly linked to some specific symptoms. I recently actually got a test back for a client, which was really interesting because she swabbed. She's like, I swear I have candida. I've had swab tests in the past. It's been candida. I've been trying to treat it, but it just keeps popping back. And we did this test. Actually, no candida was there, which wasn't unsurprising because of the amount of fungal treatment, over-the-counter stuff she'd done, but there was a huge amount of bacterial opportunistic overgrowth. And when we look at the beneficial bacteria, none of that was existent. And so that's where people can continue to have these ongoing issues. If you're treating the wrong type of organism, it can then cause an overgrowth of another type, and then that treatment that you were using that might have worked initially stops working. Vaginal pH is also measured. So the vagina is quite an acidic environment, and so you want to see this within range. It can come up as too acidic or too alkaline. especially with the alkaline. Well, actually, no, can be either. Forget that I was going to say that thing. Beneficial bacteria. So Lactobacillus species, and there's some really specific ones that are specific to the vaginal ecosystem. So important. Just like the microbiome and the good bugs in your gut are important for healthy gut function and a healthy body in general, so too is the beneficial bacteria in your vagina. And I haven't seen yet a vaginal ecosystem test which hasn't almost all been low. It's just crazy the amount of unhealthy vaginas there are out there. It's like, where are all the good bugs? And so there are some specific natural, gentle things that we can do to help restore the beneficial bacteria. And it's really important to do that, because if you have low bacteria, good bugs, that definitely means that you can have an overgrowth very quickly of the pathogenic bacteria or yeast organisms, or you might have an STI which continually flares up as opposed to stays dormant. Also too, you might have heard leaky gut. So that's where the gut lining starts to separate. There is also a thing called leaky vagina. So that's where the vaginal wall lining actually starts separating too. And that's where you can have some of these nasty things kind of enter the bloodstream, go up to the gut, enter different organs. If your beneficial bacteria is really low, it means that it can compromise the integrity of your vaginal wall lining. So super important that they're nice and healthy. And bacterial vaginosis also detects whether that's positive or negative. On this test, you can see it is positive. It's important to know whether you have bacterial vaginosis or candida. This test person has both. But again, sometimes it's actually not thrush, which is what most women think about. It's actually bacterial vaginosis, and you got to treat that bacteria, not the fungal overgrowth. Otherwise, if you're continually doing the fungal creams and the fungal tablets, the canistin type stuff, it can absolutely feed and cause and continue to flare up a bacterial vaginosis, because that fungal stuff doesn't touch the bacteria. So that is why I love this test, because we test, not guess. We work out exactly what's going on and we treat it according to the lab base. And we also look at the root causes and you develop, lifestyle, mind, environmental protocols to support the healing of the body.